Right, so welcome everybody. Thanks for your attendance this evening. Have we got any apologies for absence?
Yes, Councillor Messett. And Councillor Murray.
Okay. Unusual, Councillor Murray not to be here. Any declarations of interest to items on the agenda? Can't see any. We move on to the minutes of the last meeting, which is 10th September. Has anybody got any problems in regard to accuracy? No, can't see any.
Second.
Dennis moving, Steve seconding. All those.
Dennis wasn't here.
Dennis. Right, Dennis, you can't move.
Sorry.
I'll
second it. You can't second.
Dawn, Stephen Dawn. Yes, right. All those in favour? You can't, but I can't. No, I wasn't.
You weren't there, you can't.
Right, any abstentions? Two. And I trust that nobody's voted against it. Right, so, public participation. Have we any members of the public registered to speak? Have we any questions?
No.
Thank you. No, item 5 to review the year-to-date financial position and material variances for Crewe Town Council.
The report has been circulated, the material variances, which is a relatively new aspect of audit requirements, which is fine. I've only highlighted 2 points in there. There are some notes throughout it, but 2 points in there that we should note. Material variances, the high interest rates we're receiving for our general reserve funds, anticipated amount there. That will soften any call upon the general reserve, which we put forward anyway, so that's always a positive. And the only one I've highlighted is associated with the Clean the Crew aspect of spend. We're now getting to the end of the Treasury's process on that, and we should have much more clarity on that, but that will be a 25-26 spend anyway. So that'll be a seal underspend in the budget, which is fine. On top of the general reserve has been accessed this year.
Anybody got any questions? So, I
I
think,
just noticed, Chair, that the
yes,
spending on the parks and allotments is well within budget, isn't it? Is that right?
Oh,
Or is it?
right, that's
It's £200.
yeah, we haven't overspent on the parks. On the allotments and parks, but still, no, but yeah. It has been a more spending year because we've taken on a more proactive asset management approach, done the full tree inspections and works associated with that, and safe. But other than that, there's no anticipating other things to come forward, so we're quite confident.
so we'll take that, we've reviewed it. Has anybody else got any other comments or questions? Thank you, so that's agreed. So item 6 is to consider and approve payments today, recommendation to council between the 1st of the 8th 2024 and the 31st of 10 to the value of £328, 386, start again, £328,386.28. Anybody, any comments on the payments? No. Is anybody, we've got to approve, so is anybody prepared to, Dawn is moving, anybody prepared to second? Steve will second. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. So item 7 is to review the following governance documents as part of the annual governance review process: sexual harassment policy, cookie policy, emergency plan, and ICT policy. Pete, do you want to start the introduction?
Yeah, the latter 3 have been reviewed but are unamended, unless you choose to amend them tonight. the prior one is new, 7.1 sexual harassment policy is new and is a legal requirement for the council to have and to have the associated actions that I emailed chairs with regard to a little while ago, and so it's been drafted using relevant templates and guidance, and provides for substantive policy and associated risk assessment. It's been circulated for consultation with staff and amended if it was required accordingly.
Anybody got any comments on any of the plans?
Could you just, was it just one of the amendments?
7.1 is new,
Yeah.
and it's a new requirement for employers to have that specific policy in place. I use templates and guidance to draft it, and associated risk assessment, and circulate it to the offices in consultation, and it was circulated to chairs as well, and now it's there for consideration for recommendation to council for adoption.
Yeah, as well.
Unchanged, review for unchanged. It's part of the cycle of constant review.
The new policies have staff are happy with that. Presumably the trade union is aware
I have no representative.
of.
I would
I mean,
anticipate
template.
it was created in consultation with the relevant bodies.
Dawn?
I just wanted to just confirm, I'm sure we've got a loan working policy as well.
Steve?
If nobody else wants to say anything, I'll just propose them for
Recommendation to council.
the recommendation to council.
So, has anybody we've got a seconder for recommendation, Dennis is seconding. So, all those in favour of recommending these policies to the council? Thank you, that looks like it's unanimous. So, we're on to item 8, receive an information only report relating to civic functions.
The sport officer supports the mayor in organising civic engagements, and as this committee has the within its terms of reference oversight of that, it's effectively an information report just to report to the correct committee. It doesn't require any decision associated. It's appropriate the committee is aware.
Dawn, do you want to say anything, or?
No, just been very busy but very rewarding. So, some really nice highlights there. So, and it's nice to go and visit some of the organisations which we grant funded as well, so you can see where our money's being spent. So that's nice to see as well. And the thanks
Steve, do you want to comment?
Yeah. So, it's a very busy schedule. And I assume that generally speaking, that the entertainment would decline because they clashed with the office.
No, because we mostly do fundraisers for other mayoral towns, and I don't want to go to fundraisers for mayoral towns.
So that's not quite
Except for the Sam Batch one, which was a civic service.
So
I'm not to fund them, not to the mayor's fund.
I assume on occasion there's a clash.
Yes.
I mean,
I
there's
know that,
procedures
you can see on the dates on there
Yeah.
that, Sally's covered on this, because, I can't be in two places at once, but, and some were quite good, but others were, 10th September, I think it was. Yeah, the 10th of September couldn't attend because there was a committee meeting here. So, yeah. Which was a shame, really, because it was one that's
Anybody else, any other comments?
No?
So we just got to receive and note that report.
Yeah. We agree that we've done that.
Yeah. Item 9 is to receive the information on the report relating to the website and communications. Pete, do you want to give us some?
Yep, again, it's the same principle, it's to report into the correct committee on work associated with corporate strategy and work programmes, and this is the communications aspect. It gives details of the various different streams of communication and their reach that we can measure and how they're progressing. I would suggest, or I'm obviously biased, we have very busy communications, there's lots of information goes out all the time. It does go out in traditional methods, that includes the newsletter, which is printed for the first time and distributed around the town. We, to date, and we're tempting the viewer, we haven't had any negativity on that yet. So that's a positive, because we're nearly quite anything now from the council's name on, there's usually some more opportunity to remind us what we haven't done well and what we have done. It's been well received. We've only heard positive things on that. So again, it's information only unless you want to discuss it and make some decisions associated. But realistically, the communications are going out as directed and consistently, and I feel relatively strongly for our position as a parish council.
Anybody else got any comments or questions? Steve?
On the, excuse me, on the platform formerly known as Twitter, X, it seems to be an emergent trend to basically leave that and join something different. I'm trying to think of it.
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky.
Which, from what I've read, and I think Dawn, you've seen these as well, probably seen these comments somewhere, is more like Twitter as it was 4 or 5 years ago, before it was before the Musk era. I just wonder what the attitude of the council is to using Twitter, because I can only comment from my own view, and that some other people know that it's basically toxic. And it's not as easy to follow as it used to be. Before, like in the past, you could at least determine what you wanted to follow and you'd see it. Now, all sorts of random rubbish turns up on the feed. I mean, I should probably leave it, because it's just it's hardly useful for anything from my point of view now.
The communications officer has reported to this committee previously, I think it was in September, that Twitter is our least engaged stream. It receives all the same information as all the other streams do, but for the amount of effort that goes into the return, it's nominal. The engagement and the increasing followers is very, 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 very small. And it was discussed previously that we would go through the Christmas light switch on event, the largest activity we do in the year, or maybe Operation Summer, and see if that influences Twitter engagement in any way, shape or form positively as a final attempt, and then the consideration would be to perhaps move away from Twitter as frankly a dead dog as far as I'm concerned. And that might mean exploring Blue Sky. I'll be honest, I'm never been Blue Sky. I'm aware of it.
Trump's. I've never heard of it.
No.
Because Trump set up his own platform. Never heard of it.
Well,
He got kicked out.
It was set up by people who used to work for Twitter, presumably either
And the ones that he bought in on day one and stuff.
that sort of thing, and they're recreating
So
something that they used to.
I'm sure the communication officer will explore it, give a view and maybe progress something towards that. It's a positive use of time and efforts. Some value to the community will still progress it. But if it turns out that Twitter, as it seems over the last 6 to 12 months, has been of no significant communications value at all, there's no reason to continue flogging that horse. And we spoke to meeting at some point, I think it was September, that we get through Christmas lights, which will see if we're wrong, and actually there's big engagement, and we want to review it differently rather than making a knee-jerk decision. Then if it carries on that way, we've done the full year of activities with no great improvement, I think we can move on to more productive fields.
Thank you. So that is just to receive, and I think we've received and discussed that. So item 10 is to consider receiving an allotment site relating to Stoney Park residential development. Pete, I think this one's yours.
Thank you. There is a report given there to hopefully give you some context on what this is about. This is a site that's falling in the sky, effectively. The development at the north of the town of the Stoney Park residential area has provided an allotment site that the developer is in no position to or interested in running, understanding there's the developer. And they contacted us very out of the blue to say, would we be willing to receive it to operate on behalf of the community? And that's why it's here. Is that something we want to do? Do we want another allotment site? It's a free allotment site. There's some positives in this. I went to see it with the developer. It's just an open, bare patch. It's fenced off, it's very secure. But it's not going to infrastructure. I said, well, you're offering me probably more than anything else. Would you
need
put,
to get water.
would you put in the water, and would you put in the power, and would you put in the toilet, and would you put in a storage shed? To which they said yes. Obviously, they know it become a problem to them if they retain it. We're under no obligation to receive it. Equally, are we under a moral consideration to receive a positive asset for the town? That's where I'm sitting on it. I would suggest that if an allotment site, part of a large-scale plan application, is to be provided for Crewe, then the correct place it should sit for most people to understand would be with the current allotment provider. That would be reasonable. If it doesn't come to us, what will happen to it is the question.
Is it an area that floods?
Oh, I don't know.
I just know there's
John-
some flooding
John-
issues around there.
Is it likely to
No.
flood up at Stoney Park?
Not,
Hasn't thus far where they built houses.
Yeah.
no, it's a bit further down where the.
It's
right.
It's right at the end, I mean, obviously they're completely finished. Well,
Yeah, give or take.
beside
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and everything, so I'm not aware of that. I mean,
Right.
when we
No,
spoke,
because we've obviously gone round Stoney Park on various occasions. We've never seen any flooding.
It's really taken up besides.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
We've not
They're
seen
all
any
right
flooding.
there. They're all right there, yeah.
Dennis?
Rotary goes round there once a year collecting, and we've never had any problems there. The only thing is, there's 650 houses, I believe. Or it might
Yeah.
be more now, I don't know, but whereabouts is it? Because
It's
I
not
can't
far
remember
from
seeing
Rena.
it.
It's not far from Rena Street and North Street and all that sort of
Yeah,
area.
yeah.
I know there's Stoney Park, I
Top
don't
end
know
of
about
Broad
the
Street.
allotment.
Broad Street, yeah.
It'll be tucked away in a corner somewhere,
There's
won't
the,
it?
the big Cocknall roundabout.
Yeah.
It's a new-ish exit off there.
Yeah.
Up
Yeah.
to the
I
northeast.
think
I know.
Dennis is asking where is the
The
allotment
allotment.
site?
Oh,
In the
I was a bit
development.
surprised you didn't know.
Well, yeah, 'cause I've been round it pulling the float, so I do know it, but I can't
Right.
remember seeing an area where there could be an allotment.
It's set in amongst the houses, fairly centrally, I would say. And it's,
Is it?
yeah, the field to the east, it's west of that, and in amongst the houses. It's,
Yeah,
it's
nice.
nicely
I think I know where it
appointed
is.
site, I've got to say.
Yeah, I think I know
Are
where it is.
residents aware that they'll have an allotment site?
I can't.
I went to do
People who
evaluation.
might
I think it's,
Have chickens on their allotment and
Well, we get on to a different issue there, because as the principal make the allotment site is aware that keeping of chickens on allotment sites is very restrictive for all the right reasons. Pest control, noise control. So that's
I'm
a
aware of
separate
sites
issue.
in Crewe that have chickens.
Yeah, there are lots of sites in Crewe that have chickens, and we keep them well managed because of issues with potential cockles or rats or whatever. So we're
Yeah.
very tight on that. This site is part of the planning consent to have an allotment site. There's a play area on there, there's open space, there is provision for allotment site. It doesn't have to come, we can turn down the offer, that's absolutely fine. That's why I bring it to you, what do you want to do?
Because
I
have we
believe,
got to then recruit
yeah, it's a whole load of work.
allotment holders to take it up, then set up an allotment
Yeah.
committee to run it?
Yeah.
In the meantime, have we got the capacity of the staff to actually undertake to do that?
No, not specifically, it'll fall to me. in the long
Yeah,
term,
I know, that's why I'm asking.
Well, I do believe, I think it's only fair to say, whilst I can plead, I'm a bit pressed for time, I do believe in the long term, the offer of the asset.
Yeah. get that, I just, yeah.
I thank you for your consideration, I do appreciate that, and I think you're right, but I'm just trying to catch you along.
Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we got it all round prepared, we could rent them out. And so that would be income for the town if that's how it
The
works.
income will be below the cost of ownership.
Would it?
It always is not.
So even if you rented them out to locals and they did what they
Yeah.
want, and
You
they would
set
have
up
to take care, I mean, the rental would have to cover the maintenance, whatever they rent. Doesn't it work like that?
Allotment, so you might rent out an allotment, but on average, let's say less than
What, just-
40 quid a year.
As
There-
little as that?
Yeah, there are
I think-
about 30 plots on there, so that's £1,200 a year. We'd
Oh
soon-
no, that wouldn't be
we'd
enough.
soon burn through that.
Oh no, that
cost
wouldn't
of
be enough, I know
ownership.
that. Although, Pete, I think, because of the trend, how things are going, I think people would pay more a year to have an allotment.
There are restrictions.
There are?
Yeah, it's governed by
Oh.
legislation from
Oh,
1908 to
I know.
1955.
Oh,
And I think the preservation allotments,
yeah,
not my business to tell you this, preservation allotments I believe is very important. It's part of their community building assets. They
Yeah.
build a significant community in the middle of different housing estates, and they have great value. And so services cost money, and I will defend that, which you are in charge, you can tell me I'm wrong, that's absolutely fine. So whilst I accept it will generate a little bit of income, the reason we operate the model of self-management, which is we provide the allotment site to an allotment society, for them self-managed, and they retain them, because then they're volunteers, and not, I'm an expensive paid officer. So I'm very expensive to administer that site,
Yeah.
comparative to a volunteer society. They can then retain the income of, let's say, £1,200 on average in a year, and then reinvest in the site in new facilities, new tools, rotavators, whatever it is.
that would make
And
more
that's the
sense.
positive model we operate.
That would be good.
Just as Councillor Clark would point out, there is no society, there are no tenants, there is no infrastructure yet, so it's going to take quite a lot of
Some time,
faffing
yeah.
around, frankly, to generate an interest in the site. And by the way, there is no waiting list in the town right now for any block plots, just so you know. There are one or two on the waiting list, that's it. But some have got vacant plots, so at the minute the demand isn't there for the plots, just so you know. That doesn't mean that doesn't change, and offers like this don't come along very often. So I am creating a rod for my own back, and I recognise that. But I think in the long term, in a 10 to 20 year view, I think it would be a benefit to towns that hold this allotment site. And an area town, by the way, doesn't have any allotment sites. There's non-thing
No, but it's going to mean communication, it's going to mean putting a leaflet through all those doors
Well,
on Stoneleigh Avenue.
because the developer wants rid, because I'm
He's
in
going
a
to do
position to say to them, you must be willing to do several mailings out. I don't want to take over their data. Mailings out to your thing, give them the opportunity to take this on and all that sort of thing. And then they'll manage that early communication, we'll provide them with information. And so we can take that away from it. Then it's just managing the interest that comes in and see if we can't generate one or two keen individuals to become a society and then support them as it develops into a thing. And it's not a small job, it sounds like nothing, but it's not small, but I think it's worth investing some time.
Okay.
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, that was the question, excuse me. The resource impact, as it's shown in this report, was the obvious consideration to me, the establishing the site association and groups of plot holders. It does also, which might take quite some time, potentially beyond the year, I'm sure whoever takes it on will take beyond the year, probably. But it does strike me, I mean, in the taking the long view, the likely cost of that asset transfer is peanuts, really. It's a small figure that's mentioned in the report. And there really is a good opportunity there for some sort of community engagement, And I'd actually question, but there may be an allotment site that's been provided in the north of Crib where there isn't one, or have to be sure. But it doesn't mean to say the allotment holders come from there at all. I mean, the waiting list allotments in Crewe, that answered one of my questions, was a waiting list. Well, given, I mean, there's lots and lots of conservation groups and others who are interested in the greening of the town, So there's an opportunity there to promote something that's worthwhile as a council to promote it. And there's a rather interesting comment in there as well, and it talks about engagement. If transferred, local residents will be contacted to seek any interest. As you said, that would be through the developer initially. They've got ward members may be interested in leading engagement. It's possible. I mean, it could be ward members from anywhere, although it is Crewings, which is the biggest ward and has more councillors than any other. There's a real opportunity there, though, for in the wider sense community engagement. You know, because some people say, what use is the town council? I mean, there'll always be such people. But here's an opportunity, and I have to ask, you know, who, if we didn't take it over, or don't accept the transfer, what's likely to happen to it?
Nothing, probably just grow over.
Which is a waste. So, I mean,
I can't guarantee that. I can't see Taylor Wimpey be operating alongside. The management company for the site won't take it on. They understand. So it would be Taylor Wimpey will retain the asset and they might send us through in once a year.
but when you think about
Is it landlocked now? No.
So, I don't want to overrule the chair, sorry. We've got John and then.
Sorry. I'm looking at the allotment plan. John?
Sorry.
If my memory serves me well, when this council was formed, there was a heck of a job to get the allotments transferred over from Cheshire East to the town council. It cost this council a lot of money in solicitors' fees to get them changed over. And then we had the difficulty of one of the allotments didn't want to come into what was then a federation. And so we ended up losing 3 allotments to a separate federation, perfectly well set up, perfectly well run to this day. But it was a schism. And we retained the rest of the sites, which were then through a federation. And now I think they're more individually by a lot, you know, they form a committee and they run, and there's certain guidelines that we put in. You must do this, you must do that, blah, blah, blah. My concern would be here, providing that we can get the developer to spend the money on the services, which you're indicating that they've said that, then I believe we should come under our umbrella. Because it may well go under the umbrella of the 3 that are separate. Because they're quite, you know, I mean, I don't know how they operate. So I would like to take that under, I think we should take it under, because then it will bring a lot more. Because you never know what's going to happen if we don't. So I would personally, I'm comfortable with the council taking that over. Because once you've got your people on there, then I think they'll form a committee and so on and so on. That's what I would say.
Yeah, the question from Donna.
No, she answered
I'm
it.
so sorry.
Yeah.
Dennis?
I think we should take it over, and the one reason is because at the moment it isn't an allotment, it's just a piece of ground. So whatever happens to it is going to start, whoever comes in, it's not like we had in the old days, John, when we took over there, it was already formed. So this one is a completely new package, and all we've got to do, and I don't mean that facetiously, but basically all we've got to do is go in there and say, get the people in, and that's it. Now we start. As far as I'm aware, so I think we should take it.
yeah, and
Steve?
it was right, and I said a bit earlier that what we can do is a small cost for the transfers, and there's a real opportunity there to engage people in the community. There are good, as John Rhodes has just said, there are existing allotments. They may wish to take it on, but the town council, the municipal authority, if you like, I think almost by definition we should take it over anyway. What we can do, with that too much difficulty, I would suggest, is to promote it. You know, and we were just talking a few minutes ago about social media and communication. Good opportunity there, saying, here's an opportunity to people of whether it's Snowley Park, in Crewe East Ward, or anyone else who's interested. Because there is bound to be some, you know, one or two bright sparks, enthusiasts in Crewe. I can think of one actually on this town council. One on this town
What,
council.
Rice Park or the garden?
Well, there might be more in that case, might be more than that. You know, but then I can certainly think of at least one enthusiast who and probably more, who quite keen to promote green initiatives, shall we put it. It will fit in with our own corporate strategy, and anyway, if it's going to be a piece of waste ground, at the very least, if we've got ownership of it, where we're actually fencing it off, that is one of the small costs involved in securing it. There's an opportunity there for some key committee or other, whichever it might be, to say, oh, we need to clean up this site. Come on, have a go. And if you remember, there was an initiative involving, it was involving AMSA and the health promotion. You know, there's that, I think there's a sort of temporary allotment in Queen's Park. Yeah, you know, I mean, so there are professionals, and I just wonder, I would think that the Cheshire Wildlife Trust might be quite interested in some way in being involved. We're certainly very interested in promoting the greening of the town to voluntary groups. So I think there's a really good opportunity to promote and to get some partnership in, whether it's residents or wildlife.
You've got Hockenall Children's Centre right on the doorstep
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Good opportunity
There is,
to
of course there
engage
is.
with the schools,
Of course there is.
and Sir William Stanley's on the doorstep as well. So.
I think I'm going to regret saying this, but
Go on, Dennis.
as it's in my ward, if I can do anything to help,
Thank you.
then please let me know.
I'll just make one observation, and I'd like to recommend that we
Yes.
accept it. If you notice on the plan, it's next to the Monk Copperhole Children's Centre.
That's what Dawn just said.
So, as in Ruskin, has an allotment on Ruskin for the children, equally,
Yeah,
and so I think
yeah.
that gives us an indication where it is now, doesn't it? 'Cause that's there. So I would like to recommend.
Yeah, okay. Right, so we've had a proposal from Councillor Rose that we accept this, seconded by Tony. I personally don't think there's enough car parking, but I'm sure that's something that can be sorted out. Because if I adopted it, I won't be happy, because those roads on Stony Park are very narrow.
Yeah, there's only 5 parking spaces.
So,
and
well,
30
it says 5 standard and 2 disabled, but I'm sure that's something that can be worked out when you're talking to them.
If all 30 are taken from people who live on the estate, they can all walk.
Yeah, they can, but if it's somebody, but you know, I mean, if they have an open day or something like that, you could end up with quite a lot of cars there. Bearing in mind what I've seen in other allotments. Right, so we've got a proposer and a seconder.
Yeah.
All those in favour? And there's no communal area either is there?
No,
Is
the definition of the plots can be.
Yeah, that's to sort that out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Set aside a vacant allotment.
You just have to. I mean, that will just be put into planning purposes.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can
Model it on some other sites where what is needed, composting areas and all.
I'm sure there's a lot of work to do. Thanks for that. Right, so if we're moving on the agenda to item 11, to review the service level agreement with Crewe Heritage Centre.
Yeah. We support and have done for a little while now the Heritage Centre in its work to become a museum, a formal museum, and also to seek and secure significant external grant funding for its capital redevelopment as a modern expectation of a visitor attraction. And that's all progressing very positively. We've got some very positive partners going into that now, and some interest from funders on a very informal level. This is right for the Finance and Governance Finance and Governance Committee's position to review the governance of that arrangement. We have no executive authority over that site, quite rightly, it's the Trust's site. That said, we do have a lot of time invested in trying to help them with their operational situations and also their governance and documenting of what they do aspect. And this is the service level agreement we have in place, and it's here refreshed and renewed to make sure that agreement is formalised and doesn't drift in any way. That's what the purpose is.
Anybody, any comments or questions? Steve?
So what consideration do you seek from this committee?
To approve the renewal of the service level agreement. What we will receive to see, and I don't think this should be taken in any sort of sensitive way, is the aim here is to get to a position whereby there is no service level agreement and the Trust runs its own site on a grander scale than it ever has done before. That's the aim, and we have no ambition, as far as I understand it, to own the Trust and the Heritage Centre. We just want to help them become a bit more of scale, a bit more self-sustaining than being able to achieve. They worked hard as volunteers for 20 odd years to get it to where it is. They've done a great job. And they've asked for help, which is great. We haven't forced ourselves upon them. And in that spirit, what we want to do is get them to through the next gate they want to get through, and help them, and then slowly, whilst always being supportive and a partner in it, remove ourselves from that. So they will absorb the direct ownership, management or employment of any associated officers, for example. That's their aim as well as ours. So we're hosting an officer and soon to be 2 officers, but they're paying for those. We're trying to make it so they have the infrastructure to be employees as well.
And they come along a long way in the past few years. You can see that from the way it's operated and the visitors going around, the activities that have taken place. So the service level group is obviously working.
Well, the biggest highest visitor numbers we've ever had this year, and that's from last year, which was previously high this year. So it's going in the right direction. I would perceive another 18 months to 2 years will be in a position to say, that's great, there's the handover.
Yeah.
We're always here to help and support them, we're on your side. But you now have the infrastructure you need to be the employees and drivers of your own vehicle.
Did you manage to get a heritage officer?
The funding of Tyrol, there'll be interviews next week.
No. So you've got interest?
Yes, yeah, we have.
Okay, any comments, questions? Yeah. Anybody willing to propose that we approve the renewal of the Councillor Clark had a hand in the air first, I can't.
That's what it's.
Dennis or Steve, whichever.
Well,
Right, all those in favour? Thank you. So item 12, which is to consider the Heritage Centre site transfer to the Cheshire East Council.
Yeah, it's totally associated. There is a very complex site arrangement for the whole Heritage Centre. Network Rail owns what's called the North Junction box at the junction of the railway. And it leases it on a very old lease to Crewe and Nantwich and then subsequently Cheshire East. And the rest of the site, from approximately where the APT starts, approximately, we drew a very rough line there, is owned by Cheshire East, Crewe and Nantwich Borough Council. And that's on a lease, a very old-fashioned lease, to the Trust. Now, all these leases are old, they're relatively short-term, and securing the long-term funding for a large-scale package requires security of the site. I've made the approaches to Cheshire East Council assets. They have agreed in principle to transfer their aspects to the Crewe Town Council. So that would secure the asset in Crewe's ownership, which is ideal. And the intent would be, I would suggest to you, although I haven't read that report yet, that once transferred, a lease is drawn up with the trust over a very long period of time, so they have security of space, and they can apply for those large-scale grants, which will be supported in doing. And that's great. So that resolves this 80% of the site is sorted then, I suppose. Just Network Rail are working on the same process, but as a vast leviathan of an organisation, this little junction box is very low down on the priority list. To Cheshire East, shifting that site is a positive because they have significant financial issues and getting off their books reduces their exposure to risk. So that's where we're at. This report gives that sort of detail. It points out the fact that there are costs associated with the transfer, conveyancing and surveying. And I'm asking, one, do you in principle think this is a good idea? And two, if you do, are you willing to pay for the associates?
How much?
How much, yeah?
I don't remember, I wrote it more than 5 years ago.
Not for
Oh, there it is.
5,000, 6,000.
Yeah. So there is a fixed valuation fee for Cheshire East. They must value, so transfer of publicly owned land is legislated quite rightly. And so even if you're transferring for what I would phrase within the family of public ownership, they have to do it through a due process. And before they can transfer to a valuation, full valuation of an asset. And that's what that is, and that's a fixed cost for this process, £2,950. Conveyancing, my estimate, I think, is quite generous. I don't think it's quite as much as that, but unfortunately, sometimes we can take a little longer dealing with our Cheshire's colleagues than we might anticipate. And drawing up a lease with the trust, I don't actually think it requires much, but I'm trying not to under budget and try to make sure we manage it. So, I bet, as it says there are 3 estimates in there, and then the known figure of 2,900, which is a Cheshire's legal valuation requirement, should you be minded to project.
So roughly what we're talking about? Sorry.
3, 4,
Just on a
yeah, 6, yeah.
£6,000? Okay, thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, that sounds like a snip, doesn't it? And I think of colleagues also, would, not just here, but certainly in Antwich. In the past, it was a, if they could take anything they could take off Cheshire East Council, they would. Especially if it's down to the song. And indeed, they've done that, and other councils have done that. I think that the one, and I was quite surprised to see this report.
Yes, I was.
Cheshire East giving up an asset. There must be a catch in this somewhere. Because if we took over the freehold, who would be liable for sort of any maintenance or other? The tenant.
Yeah. The principle.
Right, okay.
So I would suggest to you, although that this will be a later stage, the principle will be a full repairing lease over a long period of time. The tenant will absorb the material requirement of maintenance of that site, which is what the trust has right now. It's now approaching fulfilling its obligations. Previously, it was a bit more rock and roll on its approach. And so we're not putting the trust in any more exposure to risk or anything like that. But we're equally not exposing ourselves to risk. The biggest risk will be if the trust ceases to exist. Then the asset would return to us, and therefore we have all those risks. So that's the risk management side of the next report you'll see when we're at that point.
Well, the previous report is actually putting that in place that we don't have that because we're
securing the trust for long term. So that's the aim of the whole process.
Yeah.
Because their leases, I recall going back, well, a number of years, nearly about 2011, 2012, there was a debate going on about the lease. And I think at the time, this is probably still the case, there was the Heritage said they had, I think it was a 40 or 50 year lease of some sort, something like that. Well, they don't anymore, but they'll take at that time they had about 40, 50 years. And there was another interested party, a well-known pop guru, who there was discussion about giving him a 99 or 125 year lease. And it was all rather messy from what bit I knew about it. How can someone who's already got a lease kind of be moved out? anyway. But yeah, I mean, the important aspect here, as you put right here in this report, was transfer this land to Crewe Town Council, returns the asset to Crewe public ownership. I think that's important, and then provides a strategic opportunity to oversee and support the development of the heritage centre. And it gives it, but it basically gives some assurance for the where was it? Oh yeah, help the trust secure the significant capital funding. This would enable them to demonstrate a long-term future on the site, especially if you've got something like a 99 or 125-year sort of lease.
In terms of that, are open to discussion.
Yeah,
at the minute, I believe they have less than 8. That's where we're at right now. So it's not a massive risk.
So you're never going to get the lottery.
You will not get under 10 years. You don't need it. It's taken, just so you know, it's taken 2.5 years, which might be my failing, to get to this point with Cheshire East assets. We've had regularisation of all situations and visits to the site to get issues that were of concern resolved and to a full understanding of the requirements of the site. So it's taken until very recently to get confirmation of them that it fulfills their principles of transfer and they're willing to do it. And so that's what they are. You know, well, no, you're not minded to do that. That's absolutely fine. But it was a messy site in terms of just legalities.
It does still wonder why you've worked on them, you've worked at it with that particular objective in mind. Certainly more recently, to guarantee the long-term occupancy of the site for something that's useful and benefits the town. So that's good. I just but yeah, I just wonder. In the end, Cheshire East Council, I mean, they've got the lease or whatever. You know, there must be a benefit for them, obviously.
It takes the risk off their portfolio.
Yeah, fair enough. And the less risk they've got, the less aggro they've got, and perhaps it reduces costs. Thank you.
Yeah, this is just a piece of the jigsaw that we need to put in place to enable us to grow and get what we want out of the Heritage Centre, which would be accessing grants. Without that, we're not going to go anywhere. So for 6k, I believe that we should strike one of the iron spots from Cheshire East and sign it quick as we can before somebody there changes their mind and thinks they can do something else with it. And I don't be, overly critical of Cheshire East, but they move at the pace that they're comfortable with. If we've got as far as we are, let's sign it up. Okay, let's move
I'll
on.
second that.
Right, so proposal from John, second from Dennis. All those in favour of transferring Heritage Centre site from Cheshire East?
And if I had a list that was actually ticking off things, legacy items from Dorothy Flew, this would be on it, so it'd be double dinked it.
I think that's unanimous. 13, to consider the maintenance of the council officers.
Right, get on to all the fun stuff. We've got a big leak in the roof. It's exposed during the more freakish rainstorms that we experience, so we don't get it every time there's snow lands or that sort of thing. I'm not suggesting there's a leak, but I am suggesting that I did have, when the roofers were here, I got more than one roofer in for repairs, and I went up with them, and it's, you don't need a light during the day, I'll be absolutely frank. At each hit down, you can see plenty of daylight coming through. The felt has failed. The slates are beyond expectation. They're very thin, man-made product. I don't know what it is. And the rainwater goods are inadequate for the large scale roof we sit on at this end as well. So they're all over. That's where we're at. It needs a full re-roof, and that's from 2 independent roofers. I did actually buy 4 roofers, 2 didn't want to come. I'm guessing they're very busy. And so you have, and they both gave almost identical quotes, which I'm reassured of. They come under recommendation. I am aware from others of these 2 firms. They're not ABC established in 2024. They are roofers of some experience. And And so they've both given the same report, which is it's not worth repairing, the repair will hold, it's a full replacement, and the replacement will cost either 14,850 or £15,000, so effectively the same.
Your hand up.
Sorry, re-roof, not the back.
I was just wondering, why is it just our end of the building and not the rest of it? Are they?
We don't know the rest of it.
So, but
They may well be facing the same issue.
yes.
Yeah, the roof is effectively the end of life for what it was built in the
So
80s.
could we get economies of scale by us getting everybody? Getting all,
We have a mix of tenancies and ownerships,
alright.
and we have a later discussion associated with one of them anyway. So there may be economies of scale to be had. I'm more than happy to contact them and say we're doing it. Do you want to join in? But it's prioritisation.
But our repair, if they don't have theirs done, it's not going to make our.
Oh no, it's just like repairing the roof in a terrace.
Right.
There are jointing strips between
Right,
the two
right.
units. There's also firewalls along the building.
Dennis,
I don't think we've got a choice, so I think we've got to accept it, so I propose that we get it done.
Tony,
Just giving you my experience, but obviously this is my field, that's a reasonable price for that and that roof. And to answer, confirm your questions, Dawn, it doesn't affect the other roofs, and like Pete said, that's how they're done, so that is reasonable. I mean, the last roof I had done, similar size, which was in my mind, 2010-ish, was 7.5, so I'm not surprised. That is about right, current rates. It's good price.
I think there's a,
John,
Go
I
local.
think when you consider that it's a relatively new building, 37 years, considering that we're not houses down there 1,200 years, probably in better condition. But it's an advert for Welsh Slate. That's all I would say, because houses that are in the ladder streets,
I
some of
agree.
which have not had new roofs, but they were built around 1880,
Yeah.
1890. And we've got something here that's probably built on jerry built. I have to say this. 37 years old, and we're now talking about replacing the roof because we've either got the actual wood that isn't seasoned or whatever, but you're saying that the slate you can see, that's the thin. Well, I say Welsh slate, definitely. Just an observation, Colin.
Right, that's
That's
them
true,
to quote
it's true, that
for
is
slated
true.
one, but it will significantly increase the price.
Hopefully both of you have to
that's
read
right.
those joists.
Yeah, definitely. I'm, by the way, I do support. We have to.
Yeah.
so Dennis has proposed that we support having this done.
Yeah.
Anybody prepared to second? Steve, second. All those in favour of repairing the roof?
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, so we're moving on as the bottom agenda to item number 14. Consider the draft budget and make recommendations to council for 25-26. Pete?
That's it. Right, the usual spiel. We go through an annual budget setting process. We start in July. It's circulated to officers, circulated to members as a very first rough draft. It's then circulated to all committees to make initial informing of plans. It's cross-referenced to the corporate strategy, which is reviewed every year anyway. And we aim to make the budget reflect the ambitions of the council within all of those bits and pieces. The committees have seen it at least twice and informed it accordingly. The council has seen it in September and will see it again in December. And this committee has seen it in September and now. What we have here, I think, is a document that has been seen by all members several times. And the great thing about this process is the more times you see it, the less it starts to change towards the end. So we feel more and more confident that we're reaching a position of consensus and understanding of what is a viable and sustainable position to be in. So we have in front of you version 10 now of the draft annual budget for 2025-26 of the council. It indicates at version 10 a percentage increase on precept of 5.33% or £4.92 for the full year on a Band D property, knowing that our majority of precept payers are in Band C or below. So the increase is nominally £4.92 for the full year on a banding. Percentage can be misleading when we're talking small figures. Our precept is a very small proportion of the annual council tax. And so I'm more than confident recommending this budget to you as members, unless you see any glaring errors or things that misleading.
Has anybody got any? Steve?
Dawn, I suppose.
Dawn and then Steve. Mine was just really, it takes into account agenda item 15. The government, that's a.
Yes, yeah, so it totally
So
takes that into
it
account.
takes it that.
And also the recent budget announcement of national insurance.
And everything else. Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, without going into any detail, but there are certain, excuse me, there's certain items still kind of outstanding in town, which are probably still subject to some discussion. So I'll cite one of them, shall I? And that is just to mess things up now. Just as one example is the future of the Lyceum Square battery, for example.
Yeah.
Which is, is still one of those that seems to be up in the air, and there's maybe one. There are probably numerous others, which some of which we don't know about. How should they be treated? Is it suggested that if there's a resolution on those, we'll say after the 4th or whatever date in December, if necessary, we would sort of, if we agreed or felt it right to go to support something else, that should be dealt with from reserves.
That would be my advice. The reason being, we've managed to get ourselves to a very secure and robust financial position where we can do that.
Yes.
So, as we've seen this year, we've had a couple of drawdowns from general reserves, but equally, because we've got significant reserves, we've received significant more interest on those reserves. That is now offsetting most of that, and we can more often not find savings in the year to replenish the reserves anyway. If it became a risk, I would identify and say we need to add a reserves budget line so that the future years to come. We can budget for the annual revenue that we know in advance and coming setting the budget for future years. So I'm happy to say that I don't see that as a risk. At this minute, that is not a definite from Cheshire East. We are minded, I believe, informally to be very supportive of the provision towards there. I am exploring other models for operation rather than the direct model that Cheshire East has proposed, and so I think we'll find a more sustainable number anyway. But we have reserves to cover it by a long way.
Yeah, I think that's yeah. That's obviously what we're concerned with is if there's still valued services in the town that may be under threat. We if it came to it, we may be able to help others find a solution.
I think
That's one way of putting it,
I
rather roundabout fashion.
I wouldn't worry about the risk of those being lost for lack of annual budget being put in just in case now.
Thank you. Any other points? No. Well, this budget is a recommendation to council. Does anybody have to Dawn? Steve seconded. So that would be a precept rise of 5.3, which is not, well, pay rise is something around that, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It does take into consideration the additional services we now offer, such as the park ranger, doing all the play equipment, and so those do add to the cost as well. But we've absorbed it and found savings elsewhere to mitigate and minimise the impact. But we have had to absorb, like I say, the cost of additional NI and the NJC scheme, which is a national negotiated thing, and that's perfectly acceptable, but it does have impact.
So, all those in favour? Thank you. So, item 15.
which is to note the NJC agreement implementation 24-25. You want to just briefly?
Yeah. As a local council, the employment conditions are such that we are part of the National Joint Council for Local Government Services, and our terms and conditions of employment are negotiated nationally and cascaded to us. And on that, the government came to agreement with the unions, I can't remember now, say October, and the letter there points out the agreement that's been done. So the number is £1,290 per annum, subject to pro rata considerations and those above a certain scale, and that has been calculated and taken into the budget anyway, and it's for noting because it's a contractual requirement, unfortunately or unfortunately.
So can we take it that we have noted the NJC agreement?
There's another financial report I put together, it's not an official one, it's just a benchmarking of similar scale local councils around the country and trying to reassure you that we don't go mad with salaries. I managed to get the figures up around number 21, well 21 councils including us, and they're not selected to do this, this is literally selected as the available figures, and on all metrics we are the cheapest running council in terms of officer costs.
Thank you.
Very noticeable, Chair, that my percentage gross expenditure at the top of the rankings is Congleton. I think that's rather interesting. It would be interesting to sort of ascertain, not asking now, but it would be rather interesting to find out why that should be, why they're,
Like I can give you some answers.
We've got a lot more staff.
Yeah, they can employ
well,
you
yes,
as well.
I mean, Weymouth's got even more, so was Chipping, not Chipping.
No, we are the benefit of recording, we're the lowest tier of government at a parish level, but there are different scales of parish authority, from the non-precept levying very small Dibley-esque type parish councils, which we may be accused of from time to time, to there are effectively small district councils, Chipping and Weymouth, they have budgets in the region of 6 to 7 million, and they have a much broader scope than we do at this time. But we're in what's called it's really a fancy phrase called the super council network of those large ones. So we effectively, because of grant funding and various other capital things we do, we're 2 million and above the council. The metrics that I've given you are based on precepts, generally, which we're 1.4 million.
I thought we were looking at league tables at 2 hours in the past.
Nice reference.
In the past.
Well, if you actually in this league table, then if you invert it as in terms of efficiency, then we're at the top of those leagues.
Yeah.
We could say that in terms of efficiency, that Crewe Alex is the most efficient in not winning.
In the past.
In the past.
Just
In the past.
For the record.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
They're still here after about 140 years. Well, could you just explain something to me?
I don't know.
How is it that Congleton, their precept is lower than ours, but all bar £40,000 seems to be allocated to staff? I just don't understand that.
Yeah.
96% of their precept, we're down at lowly, only 32% precept, our precept is staff.
Well, Congleton received a significant, I'm going to say stipend, it's not technically what it is, from Cheshire East Council for street cleansing. They get, off the top of my head, something in the region of £350,000 a year from Cheshire East for street cleansing.
Wow.
They do also charge a little bit to some smaller parishes around, but that's a very nominal amount.
The knock-on effect of them have closed their household waste recycling centres some years ago.
And they also have a town hall that generates some income. Their town is quite sizable. I do know why it's, and they own their parks and green spaces.
So the town hall hasn't turned out to be a drain on the resources.
It is a drain on resources, but it does generate income.
Thank you.
Just not a messy group.
Thank you
Yes,
for clarifying.
yeah, there's all sorts of land horrible from town council.
Right, item 16, it is recommended that the committee considers a resolution under section 1 of the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960 to exclude the public and representatives of the press from the meeting during the consideration of item 19 on the grounds, I think it should read item 17, on the grounds that matters contain sensitive information and by reason of the confidential nature of business being transacted. I'm proposing that if anybody willing to second, Steve, all those in favour? Thank you.